Good afternoon. It is September 30th, 2022, and today we had a downtrend day, probably two legs down, I would guess, but I guess the legs would start like from here. It looks like prices tried to hit the measured move of the overnight range. I actually probably would have it like that. So let's see. That's pretty much where they ended up. So that's probably what it was, what they were going for. But let's take a look at the trades. We don't need to beat around the bush, as Max says. So I think 5 o'clock comes in somewhere around here. So right when you get this, right shortly after 5 o'clock, you get the second entry. I typically do not like this much overlap, and it's not off a trend line. And let me, for some reason, my short-term trend line got deleted. So you'd probably have it drawn like that. And so you can see we get a break and a move to a new low. So there's signs here that you don't want to go short there. And I think this is probably okay off a trend line to take, but there's no trend line there. And yeah, it's just congestion. So that traps a bunch of people, and this is right before a news item, and you can see the news item leads to an overshoot, but really it just tested these lows. That eventually leads to this break. I think you want to stay out of all this. This was pretty crazy. Then we get a double test right here. And so you might consider that. I don't really like double tests. I just like it as an added added perk or whatever, added plus to a second entry. But this is a second entry short with a lower high, so I think that's why I marked it, because it is off the trend channel. But it's just congestive. It looks like you're in a range. So we come down here and then we form this pink range. It looks like a trend down still till here, and then it comes and goes back and forth a little bit, and then the floor falls out from beneath it. We break beneath the overnight lows, and you get this first entry, failed second entry short. I just think that's too big of a move. We're so far away from the beginning of the move that I typically don't like that, but you might still look at it that way with all that buying. But you can see it just goes sideways a bit, fails, and then the failure fails and it bounces back in. And I like this double bottom, first entry, failed second entry. I like that. Sets up off the trend channel, off the EMA. A lot of people are probably going to start looking at this as a range day, and at least expect to test the yesterday's close. So I like that. We come up here and you get a first entry, failed second entry long, and that just sets up pretty well. Only problem is I don't think you would want to go on the engulfing bar. And so if you don't go on the engulfing bar, then you're going into this trend channel. So maybe I should mark this green because of all that. You're going into the trend channel, and you can see there's some support because it goes way down and then it closes back inside. So yeah, I think it's better I mark that green. And then we just form a range and just chopping back and forth. This is a failure, but we're in a range, and that's congestive. All those dojis, I don't think you want to take that. But then we get a first failed second entry short. That's also a second entry long. And maybe if there's room back to this midline, then maybe that should be marked blue, 49.50. So yeah, I was going back and forth. This could be blue, I think. But it's in a range, so I'm going to keep it green, and there's congestion there. And then we break out. The breakout fails. This kind of looks like a second entry short and an overshoot, but I think you want to wait on a lower high. And then it finds support and bounces. And then we test this midline and form a range at the midline. And this is just clearly a range. So you do get a second. This looks like a second entry short right here. with plenty of room back to the midline. So I like it, but it's aggressive. And then we're just going back and forth. And we bounce right here. And we go higher. And then we form a range up here. And we fail to make it to the overnight highs. And this is just too choppy. I don't like this stuff. There's a second entry long right there, but it's beneath the EMA. High or low here, but it's just congestive. And this kind of looks like a failure, but technically it's not. So if you want to look at it as like a breakout pullback, it doesn't test that level though, so it's aggressive. This is an aggressive entry. And then it's just too far from the EMA. And we come down here, and this looks like a revert, like the market is trying to reverse. So we test these overnight lows, and it looks like the market is trying to reverse. You can see it go above the EMA here, comes down, then comes up above again, and you get a first entry, failed second entry, but it's congestive, but it is a second entry long as well. So when it ticked below, and I like that setup, to be honest, and it's a double test, so there's a lot going for it. Double test, failed second entry short, second entry long. So if you want to be aggressive, I think that's a good one to be aggressive on, if you see all that. But then it can't reverse. The market cannot reverse. So we find this congestion up here, and you get this is a double top, but it looks like we have a close up here. So it looks like a first entry, failed second entry long, but that's aggressive because breakouts fail. So it's a failure and a breakout pullback, but first breakout typically fails. But I just thought with that bullish bar, that's got to be a trap. And there's a doji right there. So it's definitely an aggressive trade. You can see they got a short trap right here with this super bearish bar and then the bull bar next to it, and it's just choppiness and a range. So that's why you got to be careful. But then you get this first failed second entry long. Maybe you take that. Not crazy about that, but I think this trend channel is supposed to be a little steeper. But it works, whatever. It's okay. But yeah, the floor falls out. You come down here, you get a second entry short, but it looks like one leg back, so I'm not crazy about that. And then they just trap a bunch of longs here. This is just a trap. Failed second entry long, but it's a range. It's congestive. But I like that the market couldn't go higher. It was trying to go higher, and it couldn't, and it's off the midline, so maybe you take that. Then we get a failed second entry short right here, and I think, you know, we didn't make a new low for the day, and so I'm thinking we're probably going to test this. It might still be a range day, and that's what we do. We test that, and you get a first entry, failed second entry long off of that trend line. I think you have to take that. Unfortunately, it doesn't test the EMA, so I mean, maybe this is green, but it looks pretty good. Second entry short, but it doesn't set up. You get a lower high, but you're going into the lows, so maybe I mark that green on the lower high, and that's a nice move down. Test the bottom of the trend line. First entry, second entry. I think you can take that. But, you know, we might go up here. So, you know, I think I like this because we just made a new low. So now it looks like we're in a down. I mean, it's not a range day anymore. It's a trend day, and we're trending down. But wasn't enough to go too far. We make this like triple bottom before the buying comes back in, and they form a range and fool everybody. And you get a first entry, failed second entry long. I think you got to take that one. And it's a breakout pullback. Closes beneath the EMA. Then we form this range. And I don't see a whole lot of that, and that really brings us into 1230. And I think you got to sit out of the craziness. So that's how I saw it today. I hope everyone had a great day. Hope you have a great weekend. I'll be back Monday.